Good evening, good evening, good evening. Who slaps billions of dollars worth of tariffs on all of your goods, but makes exceptions for your Panini soccer albums? It's us. The Worst the Night podcast from American Scouser TV. The only podcast channel, I believe, officially endorsed, sort of, by Jamie Carragher, rumoured, allegedly. No, he did. He likes us. He saw us for a 24-hour podathon, which I don't think anybody else has ever done, but we did it. More specifically the other lads, but we're better looking, so we'll take the credit for tonight. We're joined by Brian and Shazee. No Cozzy tonight. He's done a Ringo Starr and he's sulked off because he's not feeling as much love as the drummer of the band. But Brian, how are you?
Doing pretty good.
Shazee, how are you?
I'm good, Macka. Thank you.
I mean, we're all pretty great shape today, really, aren't we? When you think about it, if we look at what we're going to talk about tonight,
yeah,
the smash and grab, that was old school. I only got to see the second half live, most of the second half live, but that was old school Liverpool. Not even Rafa Benitez times. That was like right back to Bob Paisley days and Joe Fagan days of smash and grabs in Europe. We'll talk about the ridiculous nonsense that is now, money seems to be ruling the world, so people like what's his name, Infantino, are trying to figure out ways to make more of it. Probably going into their pockets, but with what they're going to do with the World Cup, expanding it to 64 teams, having Coldplay pick the halftime act. So we'll have a discussion about that kind of nonsense. Look ahead to the game for the weekend, which really the way things are going, if we win this, we've just had a fantastic March all around, really. So far, and then we'll do Rule 4-3-3, where the two lads get a chance to get a leg up on Cozzy while he's not here. But we'll see about that. It's open-ended this week again, so it's whatever you want to put into that room. But let us talk about the game. I know there was a post-match yesterday, but we can come on it from maybe different perspectives now that we've calmed down and the nerves are settled a little bit more. The boss says, "What's up, boys? Not our hair follicles, I'll tell you that much."
There'll be no contract talk. No contract talk. The boss is watching.
We don't have to talk about it, because what we can talk about was the absolute sheer bloody mindedness and brilliance of what went on yesterday. I don't think, and I'll go to Brian and then Suzy, but disagree with me if you will. I think we knew PSG were going to be that good on the ball. And I think that was Slot's plan for it, to absorb as much of the pressure as possible. Maybe not 10 shots on target worth of pressure. Thank you, Alison Becker, you sainted man, yeah. But definitely, I think he even said after, this was not going to be a game for attack. This was going to be a game for defense. And we performed outstandingly. And then robbed at the end. It was a tactical joy to behold in the calm light of hindsight, 2020 vision that it is, Brian. But that was from Alison Becker to the back four Gravenberg was run off his feet near the end of before he came off the pitch. But then Endo comes on and was just like, yeah, I'm just going to throw myself around here as well. Like, you're not getting put past me either. And then I know Salah didn't have a great game attacking wise, but he put his miles in, didn't he, defensively? That was like a proper all over the 1 to 11 old school numbers defending job, wasn't it?
Yes, I mean, we knew exactly what PSG was going to come out and do. I mean, you could go there and look about what their record is at their stadium currently in League One, and then also in the Champions League about with what they were going to come at us. I mean, Cascio Valley right there was pretty phenomenal in that match right there. I mean, he's already been a player that I think most people in the world thought he was going to be right there with his movement and all. But we did the same thing he did. I mean, we absorbed, and hit him on a counter when it was the right time to do it. I mean, I can't say how well Allison was in that match. I mean, it was just amazing. I mean, you can say right there was probably his best match that he's ever kept. I mean, so, and I can't argue with Boyd. The entire conversation on the Monday night podcast about selling Ali and all sorts of stuff that was being talked about right there. I mean, we have Allison for another season at the moment right now. I mean, it's a keeper right there usually does demise toward the 32, 33 age range. But if the demise right there would have to be astronomical right there to what he actually showed us on yesterday. So I mean, I think it was a plan right there. I mean, okay, you think about the old European ties right there. You go into them and you if you nick one, that's outstanding. I mean, you basically go there to you either go to get a point or you go there to take the match. We accomplished what we were supposed to accomplish in that right there and on the first shot. So on to Anfield next week, and and I think we definitely have to have an advantage on that right there, just because of where we're playing at. And I don't think that I'm curious to see whether you're going to see that same type of measures that are coming from PSG attacking us at our own stadium.
But do you think, Brian? Because I was just watching the game and I was watching how calm Slot was throughout the entire second half. Do you think he was looking at going, okay, now we know what to expect when we get them back to Anfield? Now we know exactly, because they were fantastic. Their technical movement was brilliant. They were so good at third man runs and catching us out on the first part of the run, but we recovered really, really well. But now we know they're not going to change between now and the next game, are they?
Oh no! I mean, I think that right there is what their DNA is. That squad is right there is attacking. I mean, they did well out there to move after moving Mbappe on to what they moved to now. Right there. I mean, they're a lot more of a level of a squad. I mean, I think if Mbappe was there, I wouldn't. I think that we would probably came out probably 2-3-0 winners on that match right there because they weren't because they're a lot more. They're more balanced than they were with him there. And also same thing goes when you had all these other pretend superstars that the aging superstars that they used to grasp and put in there. I mean the Neymars, those type of players right there that I know he was never there, but that type of player right there that went with them. But yeah, I think it's their game plan. They're going to attack us again right there. But I do think that the advantage right there definitely has to be on us because we have the 12th man behind us for one, and also I think that our pitch we play differently on our pitch. I mean, and so I think that's going to be a kind of a reversal of roles.
And so we're I believe from pretty much the same sort of Liverpool age of support, like from Paisley onwards, and we've seen a lot of football. You've clearly aged more gracefully than I ever have or ever will. But watching the game, it reminded me a lot of the Barcelona 1-0 under Houllier in the UEFA Cup, where they had like Rivaldo and like top class players.
Danielson,
but we were so like determined not to let them score, and then Gary McAllister gets that penalty to show it up, and then it was just really solid backs to the wall for the rest of it. It wasn't quite that way yesterday. I think if Salah had been in a bit better form, that might have even been a lot more in our favor because he is the talisman. But that was the kind of we may talk about the league title, but Liverpool's kind of mystique is almost built on European nights, isn't it? And that was another great one.
Yeah, and I think I'm the only one on Discord that was actually relaxed even before the game. Like, I thought there was something wrong with me. I really wasn't nervous about the game, maybe because I know that we had a second leg at Anfield. But yeah, it was just I enjoyed it. It was a typical Liverpool European back in the day game. We invited the pressure, and yeah, if it wasn't for Salah being off form attack wise, it could have been a really different game, and a lot of people forget that. But I think it was the first time this season we actually saw all three of our midfielders have a poor game at the same time. And then you add on, obviously, Salah having a poor game attack-wise. And then Diaz, I think after that misplaced pass, he kind of lost his head and he never really recovered from that. But yeah, it was just enjoyable. And to me, I'm glad we won it the way we did, because for all the endeavours with 27 shots, be it 11 on target, we just came along and just stole the game. And you can just tell, like, that moment where the hearts just broke. Like, everyone, it's not just PSG, the fans, Arsenal players are watching the game. And it's like, no matter what you do to us, you can have all the possession in the world, have all the shots in the world, and we're still going to come out and win this game. And it was great. And, just to watch Alisson as well, I'm on the Kelleher bandwagon like you. I love Kelleher, but I think Alisson has shown why he's the best keeper in the world, and you can't replace him that easily. And Marmalade, whatever he thinks he's going to come in and do, he's not as good as on his feet. But Alisson, yeah, that was just like, you don't win competitions without having a world class keeper, and Chelsea showed that when they had Peter Cech and Schmeichel with Man United, and that's exactly what we have. We have the best keeper. I would say I never watched Ray Clemens play, but I would say it's the best keeper I've seen play for Liverpool. So yeah, it was an enjoyable game, and and just knowing that we're going back to Anfield, and like I said, in terms of European royalty, we're up there with Real Madrid. Obviously, we haven't won as many, but no one wants to come to Anfield. Anfield, the reputation precedes itself. So just to know that we beat PSG, and it was a good PSG at that. They remind me of a Klopp Liverpool team when we're just getting our stuff together, and and I think in 2 years' time they probably will win that. We'll end up winning that Champions League if they keep the same players. But just to absorb all that pressure and knowing we're coming back to Anfield, and it's our own home ground, and it'll be a nice game on Tuesday, I think. And that PSG team has matured. It's no longer like the Galacticos of France. I think they've taken a different direction of what they're going through, and they're a good team. It was just hard to tell what kind of PSG is going to turn out, because that French league is just so misconceiving of where how good PSG are, and even like they beat Man City. Even then, that's not really an acid test of seeing what PSG are really about, because Man City just faltered away. But that's probably the hardest team we played this season, apart from Brighton maybe, or Bournemouth. So yeah, it was a good win for us. I'm glad we came away. I would have been happy with a 1-0 loss, to be honest with you. I would have taken that. So yeah, that was a good bonus.
I think you left Plymouth Argyle off that list of
yeah.
But also, let me just point out that I've been saying forever, Alisson Becker with the beard is a way better goalkeeper than he is without the beard. It's the weight. It does something with the weight and the ballast. And Brian, I shot the picture there, Van Dijk and Harvey Elliott with his arms aloft. Obviously, Van Dijk, a major part of the defensive success. But Harvey Elliott coming off the bench, and let's give credit where it's due. Darwin Núñez coming off the bench as well, and he really did do the thing that we like him to do, that he doesn't always do, which is cause chaos in the opposition's back four or back three, whatever they were playing. They had no answer to him. And that combination, Darwin Núñez to Harvey Elliott, who said, I think either today or after the game, that sometimes he gets angry about not playing, but the standards are so high. If you meet them, you're going to be a fantastic player. But that was a nice little bonus for us on the Thursday night shows, because we're all Harvey fans, but not always Darwin Núñez fans. But that's what we like to see. If he did more of that, we would have no complaints. He just doesn't do enough of it. But credit where it's due. He came on and I wouldn't say changed the game, but he gave them enough to think about that they forgot that Harvey Elliott was a danger. He is a great player. And left-footed on that right side, doing what Salah should have been doing, turning his hips out and aiming it towards the far corner and not trying to take players on. It was almost, that's how the Liverpool stories get written, isn't it? It's always the one that you don't expect.
I mean, Darwin Núñez does what a holding up number 9 player should do it there. He came there and saw the opportunity, hit the pass off to the left, and then it went right to Harvey Elliott. I mean, it was perfect for him right there. Totally applauded to Núñez on that right there. I mean, he did what he was supposed to do. I really think that this does kind of do some question marks probably to slot right there about going into the second leg, whether Núñez should be the starting player because of the problems he had, and maybe having Jota come off on the bench right there to be the more clinical finisher at the end. I mean, so it's I think it gave some thought processes to Slot about who to put and where. But like what Sir Z said also right there, I do think that, like you saw, this was probably one of the few matches where all three of our midfielders had a pretty subpar match. I mean, I watched Slavaslav right there was getting ran all over that pitch. I mean, a lot of times right there, and it looked kind of. Looked like he kind of lost. He was lost there for a couple during the first half, in a couple different plays. Gravenberch toward the end was dragging. I mean, of course, right there, I think that was what we all expected there with Gravenberch, because I mean, of how many minutes that he's played already this season. So, yeah, I mean, I know on Thursday we give Darwin a hard time right there, but when he does actually go in there and actually do something well, we're the first people to go in there to be right behind him and pat him on the back and say, "Hey, job well done, lad. Job well done."
So for the manager, we joke with Cosy because he did tongue in cheek. Let's let me know, cause he's a great lad. Not as good looking as us. No, I'm only kidding. I was just saying this. But he's a great lad. But he did have maybe tongue-in-cheek kind of doubts about Slot at the start of the season. But he keeps proving as a manager that we could not have looked out better in getting a replacement for Jurgen Klopp. Because I suspect, I don't think Jurgen Klopp could have won that game. Am I crazy?
No, I totally agree. I think we would have tried to go toe-to-toe with him. And with the aging players like Robertson, even Salah, I mean, he's aging. I mean, he's lost some of his pace, and he plays a different type of game mentally. I don't think we can go toe-to-toe like that anymore. We don't have, with the skill set that we had with Mane, Bobby, and Salah, our game's matured a lot, and just Slot, like, it's as much as I love Klopp, and obviously definitely the Bill Shankly of my era, where he just stopped the rot and got a title, won everything, and then Slot's come in, and you've got this Homer Simpson looking guy just come along and just start taking this, and just made everything look so easy, like, winning the league by maybe over 10 points. No players, didn't buy any players, was forced to take a player that clearly, he didn't really want. I think it was just to pacify us as fans. Sitting in good shape with the Champions League. He didn't change the formation, pretty much almost kept the same formation that Klopp had, but we just have more control. And even seeing his press conferences, for all the love that we give Klopp, he had his haters out there, and he had other fans trying to bring him down and talking crap on him. No one but Michael Oliver can talk crap about about Arne Slot, and he's just come in and just made everything look so easy. And I guess next season will be telling, because now he is going to have some of his own players, and he's going to have more of a Slot footprint on his team. But yeah, we obviously Klopp knew what we were getting. Richard Hughes, to his credit, as much as we slate him, he knew what he was getting, and none of us knew this guy just came out of nowhere. We thought we all wanted Xabi Alonso, and Amorim was in the talks and whatever. This guy Slot just from nowhere, it just and he just, pun intended, he just slotted right in, and and you can see he's slowly developing with the fans as well. If you look at the press conferences now, he's bedding himself in with the fans now. He's calling on the fans and supporters and everything else. Whereas at the beginning, it was really professional, just cold. We didn't know what to make out of it. But now he's like, the fans are warming to him. He's warming to the fans, and he's calling the fans, getting the fans on board. And it's great. It's just such a great position to be in.
And he's bald, which always helps. Brian, here's what I want to show, okay? And Suzy can comment on it as well, because we talked about Gravenberch. Literally, he was like one of those marathon runners you see in the Olympics who run out of energy 2 yards from the line and have to be lifted up and carried. over. But here's from Who Scored This, the average positions. Now, clearly there was an idea to go up and press from McAllister and Szoboszlai. I know Szoboszlai ended up playing as a forward for a little bit as well, but if you look at how Gravenberch was essentially holding that midfield all by himself at times, like with how we pressed, that the lad is just phenomenal. I know he's had his off games now in the recent past, and I think Cozzy is right that he is a little bit run off his feet. And maybe there's an argument to be made that Endo should maybe start against Southampton at the weekend and give Gravenberch a bit of a rest. But overall, we're always talking about like the quality of the number 6, and we're talking about a replacement for Fabinho. But Gravenberch is doing such a great job of doing that, isn't it? The player that we didn't think would be the replacement for Fabinho was rapidly turning into being that player, isn't he?
Oh, absolutely. And I also think that Gravenberch does an anchor job right there where we ran with our 4-3-3 before right there with that with Fabinho dropping back right there and holding up in front of Van Dijk or Gomez or whoever that was back at that time period right there, or the makeshift Henderson, or him becoming a center back, all these places that Fabinho played at through there, but it was tried and true that he basically stood as an anchor to that, and I think that Gravenberch is in that same realm. But more or less like that for Gravenberch, it's a reinventing himself right there for that role, because that's not something that he was normally known to be as that type of player. I mean, I think he was more of your regular central midfielder, not as more of your holding midfielder, or even playing in the double pivot right there before. So I think especially I think that he's learned it and he's done well with it. And I think that's also if you look in there, you have to play with McAllister doing the same thing because I think they do play in tandem very well. Where you can see McAllister will drop back when Gravenberch does make his occasional runs. So it's a lot of chemistry right there that you have to applaud Slot for coming there to giving out to the players and all that. And, Gravenberch in that match right there, I mean, we're having Konate and Trent there. And, I have to also give Trent actually played well yesterday. Trent defended very well. I mean, he backtracked the whole thing. And I mean, with on that side. So going up against Dembele is not easy. That was a tough thing right there for them. I mean, and to hear all the complaints that Barcelona fans had about Dembele, to watch what I saw right there I don't even understand right there. I think there was a scapegoat because of weird expectations that Barcelona supporters have. But yeah, I mean, I think Gravenberch had a great match. But again, I hope that he's not playing on Saturday. I hope that he is sitting there. And if you want to put him out there just to keep him warm, put him out there for like 10 minutes at the last 10 minutes of the match, just to give him a run out. That's as far as he needs because without, I think if we have a exhausted Gravenberch, I think we're gonna have problems on next Tuesday.
I just want to bring this up again because that's a good point about Trent and the Discord channel. There was a lot of good comments about Trent and his defensive work yesterday, and he did do a really good job. Yeah. And several key moments, he did what you expect a fullback to do, which is a criticism we've had from for a few years, which is that he doesn't always do what you expect the fullback to do. But I do remember him saying that Slot is slowly teaching him what the fullback job and the tasks are without the ball. But looking at the average positions, he has a proper traditional right back's position. He's not in the midfield. He's not pushed up next to Salah. Robertson is also disciplined in his position there at the back. I didn't see the first half live, so I couldn't react to it. But in the second half, I felt that Robertson was maybe being a little bit targeted as well. But there was all sorts of safeguards and fail safes to mitigate that. But Trent was that's what we want to see. That kind of defensive work with all the attacking stuff he does is why we, number one, want to keep him, and number two, why he really could be one of the world-class centre fullbacks of all time if he figures out how to be a fullback.
Yeah, absolutely. And yesterday, it's like this is why I guess Kazi put stats in room 433. Look at the stats and you see 27 shots against us. That wasn't on the defense. That was because the defenders weren't protected by the midfield, and and that's why PSG got so many shots off. I thought Trent and Robertson both had great games. Definitely one of the best fullback games I've seen from Trent, and now he's shown he can do it. I think the game plan was obviously that we weren't going to keep the ball, and we were going to work without the ball more and catch him on a counter. I know a couple of times you saw a couple of Trent passes, but Diaz's control was bad, or it was really Diaz's control was bad, or Salah wasn't making the runs that he usually does. But defensively, I thought we were great. And Robertson, I think I targeted Robertson because I thought he was starting to tire. And then when we brought Jones on, it pretty much changed that whole midfield. I think they underestimated Jones. I think they probably saw this kid, Scouse, Liverpool, English kid, come on, and I think they underestimated him. And he controlled that midfield. And he made up for the other three having a bad day. And so I don't think Jones got enough praise, or gets enough praise for what he did yesterday. He literally came on and just ran that midfield ragged by himself. And and Robertson got that protection. But going back to Trent, I mean he's a world class elite player. I don't know about being a world class elite fullback, but I mean, again, yesterday he's shown that he can, if required to, he can defend, and he had a completely black and white game compared to Doku taking him on, a week beforehand. So it just depends what Trent turns up defensively, I guess.
I think we'll leave it there for the game because I think if you're any sort of French football observer, you're probably gonna need Inspector Clouseau to come in and investigate, possibly Poirot if you're rich and fancy. But what I want to do before we move on to the next thing is, number one, I want to say hello to Spencer and Hardy and Alan for joining us. And Diego and Hussein, I'm going to assume that's how you say. But what I want to say is Blake Bushy is back. We haven't seen Blake Bushy in a while on Thursday night. It's good to see it again. But before we even go on to the next thing, if you want to be a cool kid like us, number one, shave your head. It's always a good decision. Number two, get a great sense of humor. And then number three, hit that like and subscribe button now. And then get all the latest videos and content from American Scouser TV. We're not all on every show. It's too much gorgeousness for the legalities of podcasts, apparently. But we're definitely more efficient than Doge, or whatever way you pronounce it. And we're definitely more gorgeous than NSYNC, for sure. Especially now. But let's talk about this. They're proposing to change the World Cup to 64 teams. They're proposing having a halftime show in the World Cup final. For me personally, a disgraceful idea. I would accept it if they said it's just for this one because it's in America. But that's not the thinking behind it. But what I was also shocked by, I just saw this before we came on air. But Coldplay, there they are, their England jerseys, are apparently going to select the acts for the halftime show. I can't imagine why you would want more than one for a 15-minute halftime. I can't remember how long is the Super Bowl halftime? Is it also 15 minutes or is it like half an hour?
It's about 30 minutes.
So you can get one or two, three bands on it, but you're getting a band on for like 2-3 songs at most before you have to take everything off.
With Copa America final, or the halftime was 30 minutes.
Is it? Is that because Shakira's hips don't lie?
No, that's what happened the last one. So they're thinking that it was enough. The rumors are they did it on purpose to give Messi a little break, a little extra break. But yeah, it was 30 minutes.
I mean, it's such a bizarre idea, and I have to say, with the exception of Chris Martin, that looks like a tough back four. To be fair to Coldplay, and I like Coldplay. Mostly their earlier stuff. The latest stuff is pants. But the idea of adding entertainment onto a World Cup final. And I know some of them haven't been the best, but we're soccer fans. We're watching it for the soccer. The 15 minutes, Brian, it's a perfect amount of time to go to the bathroom, refresh your drinks and your snacks. If you're watching with friends, complain about a player or another, more so if your team isn't even in the final, and then getting ready for the next half, because it could go to extra time and it could go to penalties. It could be a very, very long day. So putting a halftime show, I think they're going to do that. I think they're going to make it 30 minutes just to get the halftime show in, unless the halftime show is outside of the stadium. They don't have to interfere with the pitch. But this is such a crazy let's pander to the crowd idea, isn't it, Brian? It's ridiculous.
Is it? It's America. I mean, again, right there. What audience are you playing to? I think you figure right there. We as we like that kind of stuff like that, And then we'll turn around and they'll be like about a whole bunch of Facebook posts and social media posts about how bad the halftime show was. I mean, it's you hear the same thing in the Super Bowl every single year. This was terrible. That was such a great show. I mean, I've heard so many Kendrick Lamar complaints, and it's like, okay, I'm tired of hearing about it now. Right there, it's like with it, it's like even the pros and cons and people dissecting it and stuff like that. I mean, the only thing I knew is how this guy's got his light post, but I mean, that's a whole other topic right there. You have to figure that out. But again, why leave it like it is? I mean, there's some things right there where you don't need necessarily have to take place. You could do a before the match show if you want to do something like that, because I mean, we've seen that happen right there in Copa America, and the Euros both have had before the pitch, before we actually kicked off. We had like a mini concert on that, but also at the same time right there, does it mess with the continuity of the game in a way right there? I mean, what happens right there if somebody slips on the pitch gets damaged, players get out of form right there? Are the players going to warm up for an extra 10 minutes while they're sitting out there? I mean, it's a whole bunch of different things that go into play right there. I mean, that could go wrong. But I'm not for it. I mean, I think it's ridiculous. I think it's also ridiculous that we're having 64 teams in a World Cup. I mean, I thought we were fine like we were. I mean, I think we keep on adding, we keep on watering down the watering down, which is hence why I don't like international football. So I mean, that's one of my big things right there. It's watered down thing. It's a watered down element of the team of it right there. Club over country every day for me.
I'll just have a check there. There's 211 FIFA nations, Susie. I mean, what's to stop them from going from 64 to 128, and then basically the South Pacific countries don't get into it, and Luxembourg, and then that's it. Everybody has a go. I don't like Infantino. I think there's a bit of sliminess about him, and I think he has possibly a very large brown envelope collection in his recycling bin.
He did with UEFA.
Yeah, so I mean, and to be fair, I think that I can never pronounce his name, but the guy who runs UEFA seems a bit more savvy, a bit more football oriented. Although you can never say people in those positions of power do not have their hands in the greasy till. There's always power, money, and influence being traded for favors and whatnot. But Infantino just seems to be about Infantino, doesn't he? I mean, he's literally taking the game from the people and putting it into the people with money, which seems to be a governmental thing as much as anything else throughout the rest of the world. And now it's affecting football.
Yeah. And if it's going to be 30 minutes of halftime, it's all about money. You think how many people watch Super Bowl? I ordinarily don't watch NFL football during the season. But Super Bowl, our whole family gets together, my wife, kids, everyone, and we watch the Super Bowl, the halftime show, and that's the World Cup. Everyone around the world is going to be watching this everywhere. So that's 30 minutes of Coca-Cola commercials, Pepsi commercials, whatever commercials. And the Super Bowl charged $8 million for a 30-second commercial. FIFA are going to charge a lot more, and they can demand a lot more. And that's around the world. and that's the way it's going. Because FIFA make less money than UEFA, and so now FIFA are like, okay, they're trying to get beyond UEFA, and that's why they're trying to do this World Club Cup, and getting more people involved and more countries involved. And like I say, Infantino along with Elon Musk, they seem like these James Bond villains. And you see in the next James Bond movie, they're going to be lined up, and you see Infantino there and Elon Musk there and whoever there, and that's what it feels like. But it's just football. They're just trying to squeeze every single penny out of this game, and yeah, it's going to go from the people's game to, again, people with money just controlling it, and it's no longer going to be like how we used to. And some of it's for the good. I mean, if that money goes back into grassroots football and lesser countries to develop their football, but we know it's not. This is going to go into the hands of Pepsi. It's going to go into the hands of Adidas, Nike, Coca-Cola, and so forth. And we're just Americanizing the sport, because America still is that untapped market that football is still trying to break into.
I mean,
I think.
Go ahead.
I think one of my favorite, actual press conferences involving FIFA was when the guy came, when Seth Blatter was in there, and the guy slid in there and threw all those dollar bills up in the air,
Yeah.
and that was like that is actually this entire synopsis of FIFA right there. You go into a country, have them build a stadia, and they leave the country high and dry, and that's the way they've been doing it. I mean, there's stadia in Brazil right there, the Brasilia Stadium. It's I think it's overgrown right now, but and all that, where never even been used one, I think twice in that entire tournament, and and that country's on the hook right there, basically, unless you're Russia right there, which that's a whole different animal there, but it's robbery right there. FIFA just goes through and pillages an area, then rolls out. And make their money, move on. It's like piracy, basically, or like the Vikings of old. They go there. Hey, we're gonna do this presentation, and you get to keep all the money for all the vendors and stuff like that. But everything else right there, it's ours, and we're out.
I mean, to be fair, Brian, talking about the Vikings, it's a bit too soon for us Irish people. It's a bit too soon, Brian. It's only been 1,000 years. But here's what I want to say. I mean, Infantino makes you wish for the days of Sepp Blatter. That's how bad things are. But in terms of Americanizing the sport, but also the money going into pockets rather than I think there's a fantastic example of why we know the money doesn't go back into the game. Because for, I want to say 20 years ago, the big untapped market for talent was Africa. They were supposed to build a game in Africa, and they haven't. And if they're going to be making this amount of money, that will be, where they could finally say, we can give football associations in Africa the money to develop their professional leagues, to develop their grassroots football beyond, in countries where kids are still playing in bare feet and don't have clubs to play for. There's probably a huge amount of genuine talent that, let's be honest, and as somebody who was involved in American youth soccer for a long, long time, the talent isn't here. The environment doesn't exist in America the way it does in Africa, in the back streets of Europe. Maybe not so much Ireland and England and all that anymore, because we're more gentrified. But places like Holland and Germany have, they have street pitches for players to just go play. You just go and play. That's where your talent is built. It's not built in academies, and it's certainly not built with coaching. It's built with developing that love for the game. And when it's the only thing to do outside of school, and the only thing you want to do. America doesn't have that. It's a middle class game. It's a game where you have to have $4,000 a year for each kid to play at a club where you're going to get some decent coaching. So it seems like a missed trick, doesn't it, to be focusing so much on this country where it's not even the second sport.
Yeah. I mean, I think with this country, obviously, it's probably the third most popular, or maybe fourth, after basketball and NFL, maybe baseball. And you're right. I mean, it's you look at players like, you hear stories of Sadio Mane and Salah, Mane literally running away from his country just so he can play football, and Salah traveling 8 hours a day to play. And you look at the South Americans, players like Nunes or Suarez, where the education isn't the best, and the only way they can get out of their poverty is either joining gangs or playing football. And we don't have that in this country in terms of that, fortunately, in a lot of sense. But obviously, me growing up back in London, we played football on the pavements. We set up 2 goals, and with our coats, and we play, and you don't get that out here. It's so, and I think they're trying to make the game popular here, but unless they make the game affordable for these young kids, where you can see the next Pulisic and players like that come along, because it's such a simple game to play. If we didn't have a ball back in London, we'd play with a Coke can, and we would just kick a can around or a tennis ball around, and you just don't get that. I mean, I see my own kids, and I know when I was their age, I would constantly be out playing football, but they just don't have that passion to kick a ball around. And you see, say, you hear stories of Ronaldinho out on the beach or Messi on the beach and just kicking a ball around because they can't afford football boots or whatever not. And but if that money that FIFA are generating should go back into places like AFCON and whatever, so African nations, so we don't have to have AFCON every 2 years, so they have to generate the money. It's a vicious cycle, and the rich are just getting richer, and Infantino, he's never going to give out that position. I don't know if he got elected in or he just kind of was defaulted in, but he's not going to give that position up for a long time.
Brian, as our resident American for the Thursday night show, I mean, we want the game to grow in America, and the Premier League has done a fantastic job, I think, of doing that. I think it's been the leader in promoting the game. It's exposed people to the game it sounds stupid to say this, but in a language they understand. Got them into it with teams they can recognize, commentary that they can understand. Which I think is so. I think the best thing any of the channels ever did with the Premier League was put English commentators on it, English analysts and English presenters who understood the game, as opposed to the days when it was like Alexi Lalas and then the NFL guy that didn't want to be there in the first place. Or Ray Hudson. Let's also get that, the Ray Hudson being the analyst. But it did a fantastic job. But at the same time, it's never going to be bigger than NFL soccer over here. It's never going to be bigger than basketball, and it has beaten baseball in various points in time in terms of youth involvement. But ultimately, and I've known this from experience, American boys will be great soccer enthusiasts from 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then at 11, football. Straight over to the Pop Warner teams and get ready for high school, and that's when that train ends. So, we want the game to grow, but is it a mistake outside of the financial gains? Is it a mistake to try and focus so much money or so much attention on America that you change the nature of the biggest sporting competition and single sporting competition in the world?
I mean, I really think that the '94 World Cup really changed a lot of stuff in this country. I mean, I think that it really did change a lot of stuff here. I mean, if
it proved one thing, it proved that Diana Ross can't kick a ball straight.
True.
She did
true.
But
I mean, but you think about and it was even more relatively unknown before '94. I mean, and '94 right there led to MLS, which has led to even more involvement with people of my I'd say right below me not the Gen Xers right there, but usually more they're millennials, because they kind of grew up with MLS at the same time. But I also think that they're the influence of the South American and Central American communities inside the United States have really come there and up the tempo of the game and all that. And football to me is a uniting factor right there. We may be rivals and stuff like that, but we're all united and coming there and actually and the love of the game. And yeah, I think it's gonna be it'll be harder right there to for the sport to go further than past the NFL/NBA, because I think both of them are pretty much in hand in hand right there with it. But it just goes by community, because I think if you want to go down to certain areas right there, that football is still more popular than NFL. I mean, in certain communities. I mean, it's the same thing with NBA. I think the NBA is more popular than the NFL in certain communities. It just depends on the graphics of the people in that area. Yeah. But the problem that's happened, and you know this from off experience right there, it's a glass ceiling with football in this country. It's dealing with your travel clubs, and it goes to separation of travel clubs and Parks and Rec. And I think that the Parks and Rec basically are the scraps, and travel clubs right there are the ones that you have to have the money right there to send your kid off to go and play. I mean, because you're talking hundreds of dollars right there in a year right there, and sometimes upwards of $1,000 some dollars right there a year to keep your kid playing football. I mean, Parks and Rec right there, you pay $35 for, and play a handful of games with like the Bad News Bears, basically. I mean, it's a ragtag bunch of groups right there of kids that, and you have dedicated volunteers right there that actually go and say, hey, and try to teach their love of the game and how to play the game. And so you can only go that far. Travel right there can afford to pay for coaches. They can afford to pay for these specialists. They can afford to pay for, the people to analyze and these different things there. And it just goes to that point. I mean, so until we can go out there and actually get the game on a level playing field right there, it's not. This is it, right? I think really for the foreseeable future, you're gonna have those bright shining stars, and that are gonna make their way through there. I mean, you're going to see people like DeMarcus Beasley's and those type of people right there who are able to go there to transcend their communities and go to that point. But again, you have to realize that United States is so different from what the rest of the world is. I mean, even in England with academy football. I mean, there is no academy football in here. I mean, there's a semi-MLS academy thing that they kind of have with them, but it doesn't go there and go any further than that right there. So, I mean, it's traditional. I mean, again, it's another thing. It's traditional right there. NFL is traditional. I mean, it's one of those things we've been playing. This country's been playing NFL since technically since the early 1900s. And that's just the way it is. About the same time right there. Where England came there and basically moved with football. It kind of did the same exact thing, but with a different sport in this country. But but I do think that I appreciate the popularity now. I think that I run across people all the time. They see me wearing a Liverpool, my Liverpool gear and stuff like that, and they have a conversation. I remember probably a couple years ago, probably about in 97, 98, I had Liverpool gear on, and nobody knew what I had on. It was like completely anonymous right there. But now people know who Liverpool are. They know who, unfortunately, who Manchester United are. They know these things right there. They know, unfortunately, who Arsenal is and Chelsea. These teams right there. They know Barcelona. They know Real Madrid. They know the big teams. I mean, and that's those known as big teams. It gives us the ability to actually go there to go and start knowing your smaller teams, your Burton Albions, your Wickham Wanderers, and things like that. So, I have faith, but I know it's only going to be but so far. But I have faith that there's a lot of people who will fall in love with this sport the way I have.
And the more that happens, the less chance we have of a second Josie out the door. That's the way I look at it. So let's move on to from the American game to the only game that counts in town, Liverpool. We're playing Southampton this weekend at Anfield. Now, what I want to ask you, we'll start with Sir Z. I want to. There's only donuts with an ands on.
That's it, just a non.
But here's what I wanted to ask you, Sir Z. I want to take a different approach. Instead of talking about us from the start and what we're going to do, if you were the Southampton manager and the Southampton coaching staff and the Southampton players, and you watched Liverpool against PSG on Wednesday night, how are you now approaching the game, knowing that probably the best technical team in Europe, if not the world, club team with some of the best movement, dominated the shot count, dominated possession, lost anyway, because this is probably the most dogged Liverpool team since the mid-'80s, maybe.
I'll play with the kids. Count it as a loss. Play with the kids and save the first team players for the next game. It's. I'm not saying that. I know it's going to be one of the hardest games come Saturday. It's. Yeah, I don't know. The Southampton manager, it's a freebie for him, isn't it? You know, it's just a bonus if they get any type of result, even a draw. But it's a freebie, you know, next to like puncturing all the tires on the coach going up to Liverpool, or just praying for COVID to come along and stop the game this weekend. It's, you know, I don't think there's anything tactically or anything that the Southampton coach can say to these players. I would just go out and just play for self-pride, maybe put yourself in the shop window and see if Liverpool start buying our players again.
Brian, I'm just looking at the fixtures here. They have us, and then they have Wolves at home and Crystal Palace after that. I mean, Suzy is right. If you were Southampton and you don't want to get a pummeling trying to win the game, this is probably one where you want to, you know, save a few of your star players, maybe, isn't it?
Absolutely. I really think that even going back there, they're probably saying, hey, let's just not be Derby County. I mean, that's what about what the point is right there, because I honestly think that they're going to break Derby County's record on this for the least amount of points. I don't see them coming through and doing it. And honestly, like I would play. You need to come through, like I agree with what both y'all said right there. You need to come through and play with your resis, play with bring out your U16s, stuff like that, because you need to have health, because those next two matches, the Wolves match especially, is almost like a must win for them right there. Even though I think they're already gone. I mean, they're not mathematically gone, but they're gone. I mean, there's no recovery back right there, because if you look at the gap right there between I think it's between Leicester City is an 18th, right? Still, or is Wolves? I think it's Leicester City in 18th, correct?
Because I have the facility. 18th is Ipswich.
Is Ipswich, and there's what, a 5-point gap between that, or
5 points between Ipswich and Wolves.
So that's a 5-point gap right there. So it's getting close for Southampton. It's getting really, really, really close. I mean, they can't. It's a freebie for them against us. I mean, but really, honestly, I wouldn't even risk it right there, because they still have other matches that they have to win. There's a lot of 6-pointers down there that they need to go in there and have to not go in there and actually go against us. So I mean, honestly, I just sit back and just play my game right there. I'd probably go in there and sit back and play with the counterattack. What we do, and we'll play at the low block and just hope you're able to go there and pull something out of it. But to be adventurous, hell no. No, I would not be adventurous against Liverpool.
I mean, Wolves have Everton this weekend, and Leicester City have Chelsea away. So, I mean, that's almost a gimme for all three teams, and then you pick it up after the next one. But Suzy, looking back at our team now, we discussed Gravenberg for Endo, maybe to give Gravenberg a bit of a rest. And obviously, we can't. We would be stupid as fans, and I'm sure the players aren't doing this, but we'd be stupid as fans to count our chickens with PSG, even though they're coming to Anfield. So we do have some considerations as well, don't we? You know, maybe Jota starts this game and maybe start Nunes against PSG if we're thinking that far ahead, because Nunes caused them more problems by the looks of things. Maybe Jones gets the nod against PSG and not against Hampton. You know, there's a lot of things to think about, isn't it, for Arne Slot?
Yeah, I don't think Endo starts. I think Endo knows his place in Slot's head, and that's just to kill off the game. Again, you saw against PSG yesterday that final block in the last 5-10 minutes, and that's what he does. He's just the disruptor, and so I don't think he'll start with him, because we don't need to disrupt Southampton. I think Jones plays and either Szoboszlai gets a rest, or Gravenberch gets a rest, and I wouldn't be surprised if Elliott gets a start, maybe, and maybe even Chiesa. I wouldn't start Nunes. I don't think. I think I'd save Nunes for PSG. And start. Obviously Jota against Southampton, and hopefully Gakpo's around, and Gakpo comes on the second half on Saturday, and then Hardy starts against PSG on Tuesday.
I mean, Brian, we can talk about a gimme for Southampton, but this is a game we have to win, isn't it? It's actually like we've done the hard yards. It would be foolish to lose to Southampton then and disrupt the momentum, because if we win this, and let's say Arsenal, it's Arsenal United, isn't it, this weekend? Mm-hmm. Maybe Arsenal drop points there as well, and that pushes us further ahead, and that kills Arsenal's entire run at the title. It's just a matter of figuring out how many points we have to pick up to make it mathematically certain after that. So we say that these are important games, but we have to beat Southampton, don't we? That this is the most important game of the next week until we're done with it, and then it's PSG again.
Oh, absolutely. But I do think that we have to rotate at the same time. I don't think that we can play with that same starting 11 that we played against PSG on Wednesday. I definitely think that Simicast is going to come in for Robertson. I think that's probably a absolute that's going to happen. And I would not be surprised if either Kanate or Trent go out for Kwanzaa. One of the two are probably going to wind up moving out and having Kwanzaa play back there. I think you have to play Verge, because I think he's the head of this entire squad.
Plus, it's all club.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if there. I do think there's a chance that Endo does play in this match right there. Either Endo or Jones in that and back in that spot right there in the holding position. I'd like to see Harvey play, but I think that he's as a possibility you can see him play as in that number 10 slot. But I think that the way Dom plays that 10 is Harvey doesn't play that 10. So same thing with Chiesa, the same exact way. They don't play the same way Dom does.
Who?
Yeah. I would not. I mean, I don't think Gapko's gonna be ready. I mean, I really don't think. I think we're not gonna see Gapko probably till after the international break. I don't know what's going on. This doesn't seem like or probably not until we play Newcastle. I mean, I don't see there. It doesn't seem like there's something odd going on that's not being talked about right there with them. So. But I think your rotations are probably going to be in the back right there. I mean, I could see Jota come through and starting and having Nunez starting against PSG and then having Jota come on after that point. I could totally see that happening right there. But I mean, Mo's kind of a stalwart. You kind of have to play him. But I can see Mo getting pulled at the 60th and having Chiesa or somebody like that come on right there for him just to kind of keep some kind of rhythm with him, but not wear him all the way down.
We switched, I think, for the last 10, certainly after the goal, for the last 10 minutes to a 4-4-2, it looked like, with Szoboszlai up front, with Nunes. And it was yet another indication of how tactically more flexible the Klopp that Arne Slot is. Not to discredit Klopp, but obviously never. He's a sainted man as well. But he was definitely very rigid in his formations. It was 4-3-3, and that was it. But Arne Slot will make changes to the shape of the team to accommodate the players we have. Is it possible that if he does do rotation, that we will see maybe a different shape to preserve the players for Tuesday that are going to do double, triple duty almost? Maybe not a 4-3-3, maybe a 4-2-3-1, and give the two at in the pivots in the 2-6 positions a little bit of support. So maybe it will be Gravenberch starting, but he will have Jones with him, and the number 10 spot is just the number 10 as opposed to two number 8s. So the great thing about Arne Slot is we can educate and guess what's going to happen, but he's really capable of surprising us, isn't he?
Yeah, I think with him, it's a needs must, and like we saw in the Fulham game, he changed that formation 6 times once Robinson, was sent off, and changed it 6 times before half time came around. I think with Klopp, he was, as much as it was rigid, I think it was more maybe complacent or more like this is Liverpool. We don't adjust for anyone. You adjust for us. And I think with Slot, and I know you've referenced it before. I think he's in between Rafa and Klopp, where he'll adjust to the opponent, but not completely sell what we believe in. When we still have that mark in the game. And I think that Man City game really were, and also the PSG game were, I think, the only 2 games this season where we gave up possession, but it was by design rather than that we were forced to give up possession. But yeah, I mean, it's not like I said, you just don't know, and we don't know as fans. So I don't know how opponent managers are. He changes the formation so many times in that game, and credit to the players, they adapt pretty quick to how he wants to play as well. And what I loved as well from Nunes, like you can tell he stood there listening to Slot. It's like Slot. It's like similar to what Mourinho once said about Luke Shaw. Like he has to tell the player where to be and what to do. And I think that's where Nunes is right now, Slot. And if that works, so be it. We've only probably got him for another 3-4 months left of the season before Nunes is off. But if he can actually listen to what Slot wants him to do, and Slot has to dumb it down and break it down for him to do what he needs to do, I think we're still going to see the best of Nunes for the rest of the season. But yeah, it's such a great position to be in. We just like, it just never feels like we're losing control of a game. And even like when we're club, we go 1 down, we think we're still going to win the game. But I think that's just through the pure energy of Klopp. I think with Slots, it's more controlled, and I still feel like we're going to win the game, but in a more controlled fashion.
Before we move on to our favorite 4-3-3, room 4-3-3 section, Brian, give me a quick score prediction as we know things now before we get to the pre-game show on Saturday morning. What's your score prediction, and who will be the impact player for you?
3-0, and I think the impact player is going to be Jota.
It could be, because he's due one, isn't he? He's due a game. Suzy, what is your score prediction and your impact player?
I think we win this 5-0, and Salah. I think the way Salah came off yesterday, he was upset. So yeah, I feel sorry for Southampton. I'll go for 5-0 and Salah with the brace.
I'm going to go 5-0 as well, but I'm getting my Darwin Núñez hat trick this weekend. Finally. So with that sort of fantasy nonsense out of the way, let's go to the realities, the hard-hitting truth of life, that there are things we dislike in our day-to-day lives, and there's also things we dislike in soccer, and some things we dislike at Liverpool. Room 4-3-3. The idea is there's something that the lads want to get rid of forever, dump it into the mysterious room 4-3-3. But if they can't convince us, or definitely convince me that it should go in there, they have to keep it forever and ever and ever. Like terminal dandruff, it's just never going to go away. Or herpes. Brian, what is your candidate this week for room 4-3-3?
Mid-season international breaks, namely the international breaks that we had over the past season, where we had 3 in the first beginning part of this season. Then we turn to having number 2, and then we turn out, namely with this European Conference side stuff that we're dealing with. So yes, my vote right there is for the mid-season international breaks. I think that we can make this into one little segment in the summertime, present the matches that you need to present, and then move on with our lives. Or even just have it like one time, not 6 different times in the middle of the season.
Susie, do you have anything to rebut that, or are you in agreement?
The only rebuttal I have is this season, like ordinarily I'd agree with Brian, but I think this season, them breaks have come at a good time for us. When I feel like we're running out of steam, and then we get that break, and then it gives us that chance to like kind of just reconvene. So that's my rebuttal against it. But then I also think about the players getting injured and coming back
Yes.
injured, players like McAllister. I think, yeah. I put it in.
Let me challenge you on this a bit, Brian. If we didn't have mid-season international breaks, when would those games get played? Like if we put them in the summer, then they're never getting a break at all. They're playing year round, and you know, for someone from a country with very limited budget for the game in Ireland, like the international breaks have been money spinners. Although I would agree that the Europa Nations, the UEFA Nations League thing is a load of nonsense because now we can't. There's very few opportunities for like a country like Ireland to pick a friendly against, say, Brazil.
England.
Well, we can't do. Last time we did a friendly again. Well, not the last time, but the last time we did like a normal old school friendly. We were winning 1-0, and then the English fans destroyed Lansdowne Road. But, in one hand, I agree with you. We don't have to put up with that. But on the other hand, like for smaller countries that aren't England, France, and Germany, like the old school friendlies were a chance to make a bit of money through the gates. But that's not a factor now anymore when you think about it, is it? It's all television money now. Which is probably why the Nations League came about, to make it a bit more competitive. Because who wants to watch Ireland against Luxembourg or Wales against Andorra for a friendly? There's no purchase in it. But is like, you know, the international teams do have to get together. They have to you know, the managers have to get to know the players and put forth their ideas, and they have to train together. Would you be open to a compromise where they just have training weeks instead of actual games?
Actually, no, I think that I would go with a window, that you have an international window that you go there and go through. Like, say, for instance, right there, that we have a winter window where you go there and do it, and it coincides right there, maybe during the Christmas break right there, the beginning part of January, where you have that window. Kind of like it also goes with how Germany already has their holiday and stuff like that during that period where they don't have matches. You have a 3-week period in that wintertime, and you have a 3-week period in the summertime right there for all to fulfill your international games that you have to fulfill. First of all, there's far too many games that we all agree there's far too many games period anyway. I mean, and throwing in this, you know, these conference nonsense that are there and like CONCACAF and all over the place right there, just trash all that stuff like that, because the players are really suffering from this in the long run right there, because they're getting worn down to bits and pieces. So that's what my compromise would be right there. You have 2 windows right there to do it, to actually do your international break, and that's it.
Well, now just thinking about, because I was only thinking of friendlies. When do you do your World Cup qualifiers and your UEFA Championship qualifiers?
That's your windows. I mean, that's just your windows. You should do quality.
No friendlies.
We got rid of get rid of that stuff. So they got rid of friendlies by making this conference league stuff anyway. So there is no such thing as friendlies. So move friendlies on. This World Cup qualifying and Euro qualifying. Or your region qualifying right there. So your CONCACAF or your Copa America qualifying. Those things like that. But that's it.
So how if you're an international manager, how are you going to blood new players in if everything has to be competitive then? Which is also a current problem with the Nations League, to be fair. But nobody takes, if you're in like pot Z or whatever, or, you know, whatever it is, or the tier 7 or whatever, the way they do the Nations League, like you're basically playing friendlies anyway. It's only, correct me if I'm wrong, Susie, it's only if you're in like the top Group A or whatever is when you can actually qualify. Like the winner gets a qualification into the European Championships. But other than that, it is like a lot of group games for nothing for most of the teams. So, like, you know, if you took away international breaks, when do international managers get a chance to try new players out and to try new systems out?
You have U21s and U23s. I mean,
Yep.
to blood your players.
But you can't put 25 into those age groups.
Yeah, I mean, you can blood your players that way right there. Do I need to blood somebody who's already a senior player at a senior player? Do I need to blood them within your squad? I see your point there. Yes, that's a meshing and melding together. But I mean, I still think that again, there's too many. Too many interruptions to the league, and the other one too many matches being played by players.
See, I see the point in like, I mean, you have to have international games. There's no two ways about that. But I believe there are too many of them. So for that, I'm going to let you have it. It's going to be in 4-3-3.
Hey.
I mean, it needs to be fixed somehow, so that it's more amenable to the players. But in its current guys, it's just ridiculous. It's not helping anything. And anytime they do propose a break, they just throw more international games in on top of it anyway. So I might as well burn it down and start all over again. Suzy. Now, Brian's got he's got a score in the bag now. Are you going to equalise?
Yeah, mine's going to be short and sweet, I think. Overprotection of goalkeepers. I think since that Peter Cech injury, goalkeepers, anytime they're touched, they go down, and we see perfectly good goals disallowed. We see perfectly good plays being stopped because the goalkeeper's down or the goalkeeper's been touched. And I know it can benefit us, but it also goes against us. And it's like yesterday, Donnarumma, we didn't have two hands on the ball, but because he was down and he lost control of the ball, but it was a foul given against Nunes when it wasn't a foul. It just so happens that he was on the floor, he didn't have full control of the ball, but it's the protection of goalkeepers. And how many times have we seen goalkeepers gone up for the ball, they've mistimed the punch or mistimed the catch, but because they've been bumped into, which is a fair shoulder barge or whatever, they go on the floor and perfectly good goals are disallowed. So overprotection of goalkeepers.
Brian, what do you say?
Okay, so I get where you're going with that right there. I think the two-hand rule right there is I think what you're doing is misinterpretation of what the rules are of it right there. I do think that goalkeepers should be challenged. I don't see the same thing goes on with Donnarumma right there. When he got butted into that right there, to me right there, that's a challenge right there through there. I mean, I think that is stretched too far right there. I mean, with it, I think if you have possession of the ball and you get butted into, that's a foul. But I think if you're coming there hitting the ball or reaching out to go and do all these things with that, and you get bumped into, it's not a foul. You're playing the ball.
Exactly.
So I mean, I think so. In one way, yes, I think misinterpretation of the rules need to go away right there. I still think there need to be some kind of protection to the goalkeeper. I mean, especially with two-hand rule when you're doing that right there. I think the problem is right there was with your officials going there and calling bad plays, but bad fouls on there, which aren't fouls. I mean, so with the misinterpretation of the rule, yes, I agree with you right there. But I just still do think there need to be protections.
So from my perspective, being Irish, I come from the country that has Gaelic football, and no idea what you guys ever seen it, but the goalkeeper's not protection in that whatsoever. And you can see from that sport how sturdy and robust the goalkeeper can be if they know what they're doing. So, I mean, there is a case. I mean, you want to protect from head injuries, and serious injury, but it is a case now where a lot of keepers they know they can run into a crowd of players, fail to punch the ball away, and then just go down to the ground, and then it's a whistle. So, do you think, in terms of the overprotection of it, it's one of those things like offside, when they changed the offside rule in the 2000s when Van Nistelrooy was playing for United, and he started standing behind the back four and distracting them, and then somebody else would go and score the goal because they were all going, but he's offside. I got to go check him. Do you think it's a case that by by making the rule in favor of players will always start to try and take advantage of it. What do you think, Brian?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you can see that right there with penalties. I mean, you can see. I mean, how many dives do you see right there? I think that's another thing that goes in the same thing, in the same category. A player's going to see a rule and they're going to figure a way to take advantage of it. And they're going to do it. I mean, how many keepers do you see that's going to intentionally come there and fall, like you said, run into a crowd, fall down, and to flop over there to stop play? So yeah, I mean, definitely right there. I think that this. I think if you came and went to the point right there where things like that were addressed right there, say, hey, guess what, guy, you weren't fouled, and then if that came through and went to the whole point right there of, hey, you weren't fouled, a lot of stuff will stop. I mean, same thing with supposedly putting yellow cards on people diving, which I still haven't seen happen yet. I see people flopping all over the place. I don't see yellow cards. I don't see simulation as near as much as what they talked it up to about 2 seasons ago. So yeah, I mean, yeah, if it's addressed, I think it stops.
It's like there's that rule coming in for the 8-second thing. I think next season that it's a corner kick if you're goalkeeper.
Yeah,
I mean goalkeepers are. I mean they're getting cherries on the cake all over the place. These guys.
I miss the days of Neville Southall when Bruce Goller, like with the proper sturdy, just it was the hardest man on the pitch, that goalkeeper. But now they just like go down and just like, absolutely. If they got both hands on the ball and full control, they get carried into, that's a foul. But for coming out and mistiming a punch, and then no, that's not a foul.
But even watching like old reels like Piers Shilton and stuff like that, you see like the difference of what a keeper is then to now. Yep. It's a world of difference right there. I mean, the amount of even watching Ray Clements, watching these people like that, and seeing how they played right there. And now you're watching and seeing how finesse that has become. I mean, it's like every other sport you talk about. You talk to the NFL people that say the same thing. Well, they used to come there and hit this guy so hard right there, and it's moved on. Now you can't even touch him and stuff like that. Is this a natural progression of the game of all sport to become finesse? I mean, I don't know. I mean, but it's like, to me right there, if you give a player an opportunity to take advantage of a situation, they're going to take advantage of it, and they're going to be coached to take advantage of it.
I think I've always had the suspicion they're trying to make soccer, to go back to the Americanization thing, into a non-contact sport to make it more palatable for families. But it's always been a contact sport. And to be honest, if Bert Troutman can play an FA Cup final for Manchester City with a broken neck for 80 minutes or something like that, then goalkeepers can take a bit of a bump when they come out for corners that they've entirely misjudged. So, yes, overprotection is going into room 4-3-3. Well done, lads. So with that said, what isn't going into room 4-3-3 is everybody who's watching us, and we're really happy that you are, but you all have the ability to follow us on YouTube and Facebook and Instagram and X, formerly known as Twitter, and Blue Sky, Mastodon, Smoke Signals, and Morse Code. You can do all of that, and the overprotection of not subscribing is just not acceptable. You've just dumped that into 4-3-3 and 4-3-3. So make sure you're liking that subscribe button.
You can subscribe, smash that like button,
or tap it very gently if you have a sensitive keyboard. So then you'll know when we have all the great content, because we have a lot of it, like the coffee show, which I believe is on tomorrow morning, but it may not be. I don't.
Tomorrow morning.
Pre and post match on Saturday, and possibly a watch along for United Arsenal on Sunday. We've got a lot going on, and as I said at the start of the show, approved by none other than Jamie Carragher, and probably Arnie Slot, because he recognises how attractive we all are.
And AFCON.
And who?
AFCON.
And AFCON. But you won't know these things if you don't like and subscribe. But I want to say thank you to Brian and thank you to Sir Z, and for everybody who's watching us tonight. It has been a pleasure. Enjoy the weekend. If we get a win against Southampton, it's going to be a fantastic week all round. And I don't have to work this weekend, so we get to sleep in and watch soccer. It's fantastic. And don't forget, before you do anything for the end of the week, send Elon Musk the 5 things you did that were really good this week. Sold to Tesla. is one of them. So we will see everybody next week. Have a good one. Peace out. Here is the funky music.
Okay.